You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. That's right. It's Tuesday, September 13th, and thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. If you're on the East Coast, that's right. It's high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only in Clubhouse. And if you're participating in Clubhouse and want to participate in the show and have a brief comment on the story at hand, then just raise your hand and you will come up to the stage for a brief 20 seconds to air your grievances. But without any further ado, let's run and pay a quick bill, and we'll be right back.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hope everyone's having an amazing day today. Coming up first, we have the dope dad himself. That's right. When he's not watching his own baby, you can find him at his side business. It's a side daycare service in the inner streets of Los Angeles, where all during COVID, he was racking up bills for watching everybody else's kids. That's right. When he's not doing any of that, you can find him in daycare with TEDx speakers for adult daycare. And when he's not doing any of that, that's right, he's practicing his collegiate athlete skills when he used to play college football by backpedaling on safe banking. It is none other than the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Yeah, I like to call it Zaddy Daycare, Jason Beck. Thank you for that illustrious intro.
Is that
my
because
headline,
of the Skittles?
Yes, it's with a Z. It's different. Thank you for that illustrious intro, Jason. My headline today is from the Wall Street Journal by Rachel Bachman and Louise Radnofsky. Cannabis set to stay on World Anti-Doping Agency prohibition list. It appears the World Anti-Doping Agency will be keeping cannabis on its list of prohibited substances at least through 2023, despite last year's international fallout from American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson's suspension heading into the Tokyo Olympic Games last year. After testing positive for THC, Richardson admitted publicly she used cannabis to cope with grief upon learning her mother had died in a post-race interview. Sources close to the agency claim in a draft copy of updated regulations likely to be finalized at their meeting later this month, cannabis is still prominently listed, meaning athletes subjected to WADA's drug testing code will continue to be subject to suspension if they test positive for cannabis in competition. WADA's prohibited list expert advisory group is backed keeping the ban in place, saying that based on scientific evidence available, the drug meets the criteria for inclusion on the list. This is also in spite of increased global legality for medical and adult use consumption in a number of WADA member countries, many of which claim cannabis's effects on athletic performance is not of the enhancing nature. Per the Wall Street Journal, officials from the Netherlands have actively advocated for removing cannabinoids or chemicals found in cannabis from the list. The nation's also concerned the ban will prevent athletes from using popular and legal CBD recovery products, with their own Dutch anti-doping agency taking steps to publish details of WADA's draft list alongside their own formal responses from Dutch authorities on its website. Cannabinoids most likely have a negative impact on athletic performance, the agency wrote. In response to the public outrage over their decision to keep cannabis on the ban list, WADA emphasized the list is still provisional until later this month. A WADA spokesman said in a statement, the draft 2023 prohibited list is still under consideration. WADA's executive committee will be asked to approve the final version of the list during its 23rd of September meeting, with the list itself being published on or before October 1st and coming into force on the 1st of January. An agency official said that he could not comment further about the draft list. I hate to compare apples to oranges here, but I gotta say the whole situation sounds similar to the leaked Dobbs decision that ended up reversing Roe v. Wade. I mean, we can all wait for the official word to be released publicly at the end of the month for a official response, but the genie's already out of the bottle. Another prohibitionist win for Big Pharma, global elites, and the organizations they represent and we choose to follow. All in the name of law and order. Burn it all down. This is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street, and you are getting high at 9. What do you
I choose chaos and violence.
Absolutely.
I don't choose to follow order.
That is just ridiculous.
Obey.
As I got diagnosed, I recognized that the medicines that they are given to us do not actually work. They don't work for intended purposes, maybe to lower my viral load or to lower the symptoms of the virus or whatever your diagnosis may be, but they have no intention of healing or getting rid of said virus or disease. That would be unprofitable. And in the words of the famous Rico Lamitte, follow the money. And it adds up really quickly to understand what their motives are. And I choose to go in the opposite direction. I choose not to obey.
So if you were an athlete, you would just still use illicit drugs participate?
Thank God I'm not an athlete. If I was an athlete, I guess I would have to follow their rules. Thank God I'm an advocate and an activist. And I get to break the rules for a living.
So you're an outlaw.
I think the sad part about being an athlete, though, is that in a big way, and like America is really just, we glorify the shit out of destroying your body for our entertainment. You know, it's like literally, it's sad what we're watching happen with these football players, especially. But, you know, even down to like a ballerina dancer, you know what I mean? These people are like destroying their bodies. People are every single day, like day in and day out, needing different types of pain medications for the things that their athletics are doing. And they're forced to be on pharmaceutical drugs, essentially, because it's like, what are you going to do? What, you know, your options are: don't be an athlete, like stop doing this thing that makes you a gang of money and you built your whole life on, you know, or choose weed. Like very few people are going to choose weed. Like what's his name? Ricky Williams is like one of like 5 people I think that like was like, nah, like, fuck you guys. I choose weed. Like, but like, you're going to choose
I think we're at a turning point. More people will choose.
So is the choice really weed or Wheaties?
I mean,
weed or Wheaties, yeah. Weed or Wheaties.
Let's take a step back and remember that Michael Phelps has more Olympic gold medals than any other man in history.
But he didn't choose weed. He like stepped down and he was like, or not stepped down, but he was like, you know, that was in the past, blah, 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 blah. Ricky Williams was like, fuck yeah, weed. Like, shut up.
Have you seen that guy? Have you seen him clear a bong? Have you seen him clear a bong?
I mean, those lungs are made of steel, but
exactly.
At the end of the day, I think we could still consider it performance enhancing because that dude won so many medals and he was smoking weed. So
he came back after getting caught smoking bongs on tape in dorm rooms. Like that was a real crime. This motherfucker was a multi gold winning champion of the fucking world, still going back to college parties and dorms and taking bongs in dorm rooms. That's just true crime. What the fuck are you doing, dude?
Why are you hanging out here, kid?
Well, as a professional athlete, he didn't get to experience any of that partying and fun while he was training, right? So
How do you
when
know
he was
that? How
in
do you
his
know
college
that?
years,
I-
he was probably really focused, head down.
He was
Trying
trying
to-
he was
trying to get
practicing
to
his
the Olympics.
cardio game
I
by
do have to
clearing out the
say-
bong.
I do have to say, I was in college the same time as him, and a big shout out to Matt Grievers on Northwestern's swimming team. He was like right by him, and he was a multi-gold medal winner too. And Matt Grievers was just as big of a partier as the rest of us football players were. I don't know what Michael Phelps was doing over at Michigan, but we were fucking partying hard with the swimmers. And yes, they have fucking lungs of steel.
We have Malik from the Clubhouse audience up to comment on this. What do you have to say briefly on this, Malik?
I guess just that Michael Phelps's breakfast was like 8,000 calories. So you know that dude needed to smoke weed. And, you know, the other thing I'd just like to say is that it seems it's not fair that a football player can have an injury and they're like, put the shot in the knee and you go out and play. That is a performance enhancement, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
you can't smoke weed. I never got that
Yeah.
part. So that's all. Thank you.
Well, that's because weed is a performance-enhancing drug.
Yeah,
But
and
so
Malik,
it's like
Malik,
a steroid
Malik
in the
has a
fucking knee before you go out. It's like he's saying, like getting a
Yeah.
shot in the knee.
great,
I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm
Great
not
comment there,
saying that
Malik.
it's not.
And
Rico,
yes,
can-
it is true.
I'm just
They'll
asking,
stick
is there
with
any
anything.
reasoning at all in these articles?
Is there what?
Any reason?
That
Given.
we'd say,
For
Yeah.
WADA, they wouldn't comment further
Nothing.
on it.
You know
Yeah,
what the reason is.
WADA refused to comment further on it, but there were a number of countries that sparked backlash immediately on the leaked. Yeah, fucking.
You know why it is.
information out there.
You know why it is, Gretchen. It's because cannabis is a Schedule I drug in the United States of America. the
Pfizer
greatest
is a
country in the
huge
world.
supporter. Pfizer is a huge supporter of WADA and international sports community.
I mean,
and Big Pharma is going to be in the bag, in the pockets of all of these people in charge.
weed's still
Yeah, but
illegal
how do
in
you
a lot
see-
of places. Olympics are. You know what I mean? Like it's.
I know we want to keep saying follow the money, yada yada, but there are plenty of other organizations like the NBA who do allow this, and there's plenty of money being made there. So
That's what I'm saying.
argument
It's I think globally weed's just still illegal most places enough that they're like, nah,
Yeah,
we're still
I
not
think
fucking
internationally
with it.
it's
We're
more the
still not
issue. I
fucking with it. We want to go to Japan. We want to go to fucking Korea. We want to go to China. We have to go to all these places that are never gonna fuck with weed. So like, no, sorry.
Yeah.
And
I
Gretchen,
think it has to be more with international law than follow
Yeah.
the money. Big Pharma's trying to shut this down.
I think
disagree.
it's
I disagree because Gretchen, if you look at the NBA, they faced, if they did not relax their laws or their rules around cannabis, they faced losing the face of their organization. Many of the biggest players in the league are known public chiefers, period. It will not take you long
I
to find
get
on
it.
Instagram Live or on YouTube to find some of your favorite basketball players, some of your favorite football players, some of your favorite American athletes smoking
I
weed.
get it, but we're seeing American sports leagues relax their rules. So to pretend that it's just about pharma trying to shut shit down, and it's because America is against legalization,
the
I
whole
think that's
world.
ridiculous.
You're 100% right about that, Gretchen. If the USD scheduled cannabis, WADA would change its policies, and it's only reflective of U.S. policy here.
Well, I think
we are at time on that
if
article,
more
so
cannabis-
we're gonna.
If more cannabis companies supported them and put more money towards WADA, then you would see the rules change quickly.
No.
All right. With that said, thank you so much for that headline, Rico. That was a very interesting debate at the very least. And let's keep watching as hopefully more sports organizations start to relax and allow cannabis to be used during and and definitely off season. So up next we have Jason Beck. Jason Beck's the longest running retailer in the history of cannabis, the member of whatever political party might piss you off, and our very own Kaiser Brose. What do you have for us today, Jason?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to definitely be pissing some people off today with this story. And you know who that's going to be? The people I love to piss off the most. That's right. The fucking prohibitionists. Because in Missouri, and remember, you always have to make sure that the I is included because you can't silence the I, because otherwise I would not exist. Where there's a Missouri judge dismisses a lawsuit against a ballot measure to legalize cannabis. A lawsuit contesting the upcoming cannabis ballot measure was dismissed by a judge on Friday. The lawsuit against the Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, threatened to take down a ballot measure known as Amendment 3 that would essentially legalize cannabis across Missouri. Its argument centered on the validity of the signatures needed to certify the ballot item. It also cited a state constitution provision that mandates ballot measures to a single subject matter, similar to Florida. In the end, however, Cole County Circuit Judge Cotton Walker dismissed the lawsuit for a different reason. The residence of the woman, Joy Sweeney, avid prohibitionist who filed it. Sweeney is the Deputy Director of Training, Technical Assistance, and Community Outreach for the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. That is a big title and a big prohibitionist backing to get behind. Walker denied the lawsuit under procedural grounds, arguing there isn't enough evidence to prove Sweeney lives in Missouri. Voiding her lawsuit, Sweeney testified that she lives in Missouri but owns a home in Virginia. Regardless of the residency question, the judge also dismissed Sweeney's arguments against the lawsuit. He stated no wrongdoing in the collection of signatures or the subject of the ballot measure. In a quote, he says, the court would have therefore dismissed the petition and addressed costs against the plaintiff if it had ruled on the merits in this case, the judgment reads. The ballot measure will allow adult use cannabis for residents over 21 and expunge nonviolent cannabis-related criminal offenses from records. Still, Amendment 3 has generated controversy, especially with pro-legalization camps, as a recent Riverfront Times cover story showed. But nonetheless, the prospect of cannabis legalization will now go to voters in the great state of Missouri on November 8th. Well, I'll tell you what, Missourians, you better get out there and vote and make sure you guys have legal cannabis, because otherwise your medical market is just going to keep on blowing up, and we need more access for more people in the great state of Missouri. And this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News.
Okay, so Missouri tried to legalize. Someone sued.
Correct. She filed to try to block the measure from being on the ballot, but she is a Virginia resident trying to claim residency in the great state of Missouri, and the judge said, "Nah, take that shit back to Virginia, you prohibitionist."
Dang, sick. Snaps.
Shout out to that judge.
Snaps to that judge for sure. Yeah, definitely. Oh man, it doesn't surprise me anymore, the things that people will sue people over, honestly, or sue to try to stop the lawsuit in Oklahoma to try to stop Metric. That was interesting.
Exactly.
Like, I wonder how much money they spent on that. They delayed it by like 11 months. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. They delayed it. So whatever version of like diversion they were working on, I'm sure they made their money's worth, but I wonder how much it cost them to
deal with the courts. Same in Georgia. They've lawsuits are holding up the dispensary and allocation of cultivations, licensing, all of that stuff in Georgia as well. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Patients have been waiting for years.
If you got money, sue.
And it's the will of the people at the end of the day. That's the thing that like pisses me off, is the people have decided that either through representation or direct ballot measure, this is what we want. But now, yet we have these administrative bodies just sitting here dicking around, making us jump through bureaucratic hoops like we're fucking trained circus monkeys or something.
We are.
Hold on, are you telling me we're not trained circus monkeys?
I'm sorry, we are.
I mean,
because I could have swore we were.
I will admit to having a monkey brain, but that's about all you're going to get from me.
Yeah, no, we are.
Indiana Jones eats monkey brains.
The government's like, dance, monkeys, dance. And we're like,
and then at the end they say, and by the way, all that money you made, give it to us.
Yeah,
That's the IRS coming around to your homes with guns now.
Hell yes.
Like, here, take it. I don't deserve it.
They're there to take your guns and use them themselves.
If Beto O'Rourke has anything to do about it.
We're not getting arrested for smoking weed anymore, which is pretty great.
There's still people getting arrested for smoking weed, though.
Bro, wait for my story. I'm about to get.
Yeah, wait for Nicole's story.
Somebody forgot.
Are people still getting arrested for weed, dude? All over the world, all over this country.
I'm just enjoying my utopia of California right now a little too much,
Yeah,
I guess.
that's exactly what it is. It's a little dream box.
Little bubble.
It feels
Yeah.
like you're
I
in
would-
your own separate world, but
Yeah.
go to Alabama, go to Mississippi.
I would
I
call
don't
your
go to those
utopia.
places.
I would call your utopia at Long Beach, because even if you
Yeah.
went to Kern County, you could run afoul of getting arrested for weed.
It's true.
True.
That's true.
The Bluetopia, if you will. Great segue. So coming up next. She sacrificed 30 days of her own freedom in Colorado jail so you wouldn't have to, and has been on a mission ever since, making sure others never make the same compliance mistakes she did. But now a cannabis business consultant that does way more than just showing up daily to get hyphy for spreadsheets. In her spare time, she enjoys busting bullshit and is currently working on a doctorate in dirtbag psychology at Long Beach Community College. Coming up to the stage next is the self-described general data bitch, Nichole West. What you got for us today?
Oh my God, that was an amazing intro. That set my day up for success. Thank you, Rico. My headline today is actually, first of all, I'm going to give a trigger warning for this because this is fucked up. I don't know that this is like necessarily something that we would give a trigger warning for, but this is really fucked up. It's the article's from The Guardian, and it's coming out of Alabama, where apparently Alabama is jailing pregnant marijuana users to protect the fetus. Okay, that's the beginning of this story, which to respond to Ed's that people are still not going to jail. Here's one of the most fucked up stories I think I've ever heard about going to jail because of weed. In a traffic stop, the police officer found a small amount of weed. Ashley Banks, a 23-year-old woman living in Alabama, admitted to the cops that she had been smoking marijuana 2 days earlier. It was the same day that she learned she was pregnant. She was 6 weeks along. It was this disclosure that she was pregnant that led Etowah County officials to keep her in jail without trial for the next 3 months. Alabama has an exceptionally high incarceration rate, locking up about 938 people per 100,000 residents for cannabis. But even in general, not for cannabis, but even within a state of disproportionate prison population, an arrest for a small scale during possession would not usually lead to such an extended pre-trial jail stay. But Banks fell victim to a peculiar Alabama law that advocates say Etowah County enforces with special zeal. Pregnant women who are arrested for a drug offense are not allowed to post bail or go free the way that people are. They have to stay in custody, either in jail or in a residential drug rehab program. The logic is that the women are in danger to their fetus. The need to be imprisoned by the state and to keep their freedom in order to protect the pregnancy. In Banks' case, jail officials tried to send her to rehab, but after an assessment, the facility turned her away. Banks said that she was merely a casual marijuana user and not an addict, and did not need an inpatient drug treatment. Too healthy for rehab, but not trusted enough by the state to be set free. She was kept in limbo in jail for 3 months. Meanwhile, Banks' pregnancy wasn't going well. She had a family history of miscarriages and was experiencing bleeding in jail. At one point, jail officials assigned her to sleep in a bed that was already occupied by another prisoner. Banks slept on the floor. She is not the only one. Another woman, Hallie Burns, was taken to Etowah County Jail just 6 days after giving birth to her son, with police saying that she had tested positive for the drug used by pregnant women with an opioid addiction to help manage cravings and withdrawal. She was then thrown in jail. Burns still physically recovering from giving birth, but the jail had no facilities for her to pump or tend to her wounds. Her partner tried to bring her pads and underwear so that she wouldn't have to bleed in her clothes. But Etowah County authorities wouldn't let her have them for the risk, and her risk of infection was great. The indignity was even greater. Stories like Banks and Burns, the needless to disproportionate incarceration, or the loss of freedom, and the recourse inflicted on them is the basis of their pregnancy. The cruelty justified by authorities as protection for a fetus are becoming more common. Alabama criminalizes more women for pregnancy with cannabis than any other state. Just last year, Kim Blanick, a mother of 6 from Florence in Alabama, was charged with a felony for filling a long-standing prescription from her doctor while pregnant. Prosecutors charged that the medication with Blanick was taking as prescribed could have hurt her fetus. But these jailings are not just an Alabama thing. The trend of imprisoning pregnant women and postpartum women for supposedly endangering their fetus is one growing nationwide. Excuse me, this is a very emotional story. Over 32 years, from 1973, when Roe v. Wade was decided in 2005, the United States has seen a total of 413 pregnancy prosecutions all throughout the nation, according to Afsa Malik, a research associate at the Reproductive Justice Group, National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and the co-author of the recent report on pregnancy criminalization. So I had no idea that this was even a thing. The idea that they're imprisoning a woman who's in the middle of being pregnant to protect the fetus, like jail is the most fucked up place. And I will say that the way that they treated us in jail over sanitary products was the most inhumane thing that I think I've ever seen anybody go through in real life. And I know more fucked up shit happens, but like, this is the saddest story I think I've ever read about cannabis. And I just want to say, like, we have to do something about this. And I hope that we're able to help somehow. And I'm going to figure that out however we can. And there'll be a call to action, but this is fucked up. I'm curious what everyone has to say. And I hope that these women are able to recover from this terrible, terrible injustice that happened to them. And I'm Nichole West, needing to get high at 9 with you guys. So thanks for listening.
Nichole, thank you so much for bringing this story to our attention. I had no idea when I heard it either, when I read it. Broke my heart. Of course, listening to you read it again breaks my heart even more. I don't even know where the call of action needs to be, but the trauma that these women had to endure, along with their babies, their children, either being imprisoned with them or the trauma of being separated from them right after giving birth is just unheard of. You think about this happening in other places, not here in the United States. And so just thank you for bringing this to our attention, because it is very sad and criminal what these authorities are doing to women in prison.
We also have Dr. Felicia up from Clubhouse to comment on this.
Good morning, everybody. It is outrageous, it's sickening, and for America to talk about how they care about children and about women, it doesn't show in the actions. Our brains begin developing before we're born, and everything that the mother is experiencing, especially if it's traumatic, affects the baby. When mother's cortisol levels go up, that crosses the placenta and affects the baby. If mother is sad, if mother is traumatized, the baby experiences everything that the mother is going through. And that affects not only how they act when they get out here as an ADH and trouble being antisocial and angry, when we're trying to blame all that on cannabis, when the real problem is the trauma that we're putting women through. And they're taking cannabis to put some distance between themselves and the trauma. So our physicians, our researchers, we have got to do a better job, and our government, more so our government than anything else. We have to do a better job of taking care of the mom. If you take care of the mom, the baby's going to be okay. You got to support, love, and nourish the mom for the baby to be okay. And I'm done speaking.
I said that better, Dr. Felicia. This is terrible all across the board. And I don't know, man. I don't even have like much. I'm kind of speechless on this. This is fucked up, like beyond being fucked up.
All right. Well, I'm happy
terrible.
to take a viewpoint that's probably not going to be that happy or, Seema. The first woman that they referred to in the story, no offense, the woman was 6 weeks pregnant. She just found out she was pregnant. We're not talking about putting an 8.5-month pregnant woman lying on a cell floor.
For 3 months, though?
I think we need
3 months, Gretchen? Well, like 72 hours or something to analyze her and be like, you're not a drug addict. You're not a fucking drug addict. Like 3 months is insane. I'm sorry.
The rehab kicked her back.
The rehab said she didn't have a problem.
We don't
I think what we should be looking at is what's missing in this story, or any lawyers for these women. I think this is more of a problem with the criminal justice
but it's
system.
going to happen for poor people.
Access.
Exactly.
Yep.
This is more a story about access. The second woman referenced in it, she went to jail after she had had the baby, and to suggest, oh, we threw another pregnant woman on the floor. I mean, I would say we need to just read this a little more closely before we all get up in arms.
Well, I forgot a point. I forgot a point, Gretchen. They don't even get the opportunity to post bail. Pregnant women put in
This is a problem
jail.
with the criminal justice system. This doesn't. It's not.
But they get it. But they get it. But they get it from the medical community that, oh, this woman is hurting her baby. That's part of the problem with modern obstetrics. We have put so much focus. We have put so much focus on the fetus and looking at the fetal monitor. We don't even look. Half the time, folks coming into the labor room not even looking at the mother. They're just looking at the fetal tracing. We're putting too much focus on the fetus and forgetting about the mom. And that's why America has the highest mortality rate in the world of all developed nations. America has the most highest maternal morbidity rate, and for women of color, it's 4 times.
Yeah, I was going to
that
ask
of white women. We're putting it's too much focus on the fetus, y'all. It's too much. You got to take care of the mom. You got to take care of the mom.
The people in Alabama need to be looking at how their system is set up. If these women were not granted phone calls, if they're not granted attorneys, I think
1,000%, 1,000%. But the fact that they would treat pregnant women
to suggest like, oh my God, the 6-week pregnant woman. I mean,
but that's when you lose. That's when you lose the baby.
I know when you lose a child, but I'm just saying, half the time women don't even know at 6 weeks they're pregnant.
Yeah,
so
but that's
just you got.
Anyways, we're not going to get
pregnant women who are
this.
doing plenty of things for months after months.
We're going to go ahead and go to the disclaimer
Maybe,
now. So thank you all very much for indulging me in this conversation. Thank you, Dr. Felicia, for your insight and gospel, because that shit like fucking resonates in my soul. So the thoughts and opinions in general shade thrown at the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. Statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice from our speakers, make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance, any country, area, territory, or its authorities. Views expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsorships do not apply and constitute the endorsement by us, expression, any whatsoever, any part of the speaker, anyone on stage. If you're easily offended person, the show is probably not for you. Also, fuck off.
Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX. Located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down and score like a winner in LA. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get High at 9 for 10% off your full order.
Our next correspondent splits her days and nights between cooking delicious treats and battling it out on K Street with pot-loving libs across the aisle. She's also a full-time feisty, red-headed conservative with Mayflower roots and an unhealthy love for safe banking. Coming to the stage next, it's our very own Washington insider and the founder of Panoptic Strategies, Gretchen Gailey. What you got for us? Getting high at noon with the team on Tuesday.
Good afternoon. My headline, if I can find it here, I lost it, is basically about a bunch of prohibitionist lawmakers who are looking at the environmental impacts of cannabis. My headline's coming from Marijuana Moment, and the headline is Anti-Legalization GOP Congressman Push Biden Administration to Study Marijuana Cultivation's Environmental Impacts. A pair of GOP congressmen is asking key cabinet officials in the Biden administration to study the environmental impacts of marijuana cultivation, acknowledging both the intensive electrical demand that growing cannabis can involve, as well as the role that legalization can play in setting regulations for the plant. Representatives Earl Carter and Doug Lamborn, both Republicans, sent the letter to the heads of the Department of Energy, Interior Department, Environmental Protection Agency, and Energy Information Administration yesterday. It argues that as Congress considers legislation to federally legalize marijuana, lawmakers need to better understand serious concerns regarding the energy and resource-intensive nature of marijuana cultivation. The anti-legalization lawmakers said that they have reservations regarding marijuana cultivation subsequent emissions and believe more research is needed on this industry's rapidly growing demands on our country's energy systems, along with its effects on our environment. The letter isn't necessarily advocating against legalization, despite the overall prohibitionist views of the signatories. And it even recognizes differences in the impacts of regulated state markets and illicit operations, which is a point of bipartisan interest. The legalization of marijuana in several states has fueled a sharp increase in the study of marijuana products coming to market. As such, marijuana cultivation operations have expanded and adapted to optimize the speed of development. In fact, indoor marijuana cultivation consumes, and I'm sorry, I don't know what these terms, is there a cultivator out there? What's KBTU per square feet? Goes on to talk about the energy consumption.
That refers to how much energy is consumed within a cubic foot.
Right. Do you know what the BTU is?
BTU is for measuring airflow with air conditioners, if I'm correct.
It's a measurement of a heat exchange or heat change.
All right. With respect to energy demands, that's been a focus of state cannabis regulators, particularly as it concerns indoor cultivators. Other advocates and stakeholders have suggested that ending prohibition and allowing interstate marijuana commerce could minimize energy use by allowing states better suited for more sustainable outdoor cultivation to market their products to states with different climates. The letter, which was first reported by the Washington Examiner, also talks about water usage for cannabis grows, citing reports that says the plant requires twice as much water as other crops such as maize, soybeans, wheat, and wine grapes. Water conservation problems have also emerged in illicit grows that have diverted precious water resources throughout the country. And for this, the lawmakers pointed to a report that was put out by the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Those illegal cultivators have also been blamed for utilizing pesticides and fertilizers that are harmful to the environment and wildlife. The letter, which was helped to be drafted by the prohibitionist group Smart Approaches to Marijuana, states that demanding for prioritizing electricity uses and for increased energy efficiency is a growing concern for the American public, adding that it is essential that the nation understand the burden marijuana cultivation puts on the electrical grid and the environment. There are also a few questions that they asked these agencies in the letter. They asked, how does current marijuana legalization impact state energy consumption and emission levels? How would federal legalization of marijuana affect national energy consumption and emission? What is the anticipated growth of energy usage and emissions from the marijuana industry? How will growing energy demands from the marijuana industry affect the reliability of our electric grid? And what impact do illegal marijuana growing operations have on the country's water supply? And what harms do illegal marijuana growers' use of various fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides pose to wildlife habitats and humans in the United States? And the congressman said that they want a response from these agencies by November 30th. I think they're going to be hard-pressed to get any of these answers from any of these agencies by November 30th. I don't think these agencies have the answers to any of these questions. We shall see what comes of this. But I think all that this is doing is paving the way for an argument for legalization, for regulation. If you're truly concerned about the environmental impacts of this industry, you really need to be looking at ways to conserve, plans to be put in place in states to make sure that you're getting the type of consumption that you want. And truly, we're seeing the impact from illicit grows. And that's what needs to be handled. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
I find it interesting that these certain prohibitionist Republicans only come out to talk about the environment when it's around cannabis.
Yeah.
I do find that interesting.
Weren't they all saying like death to the EPA?
Yeah.
And one thing, like we're overregulated already in cannabis. So like the to me the whole idea of pesticides and herbicides being a concern from the EPA, it's like go after the rest of big ag first, please. Like there's
I disagree. I disagree. In a big way.
Well, I mean,
as
for
someone
cannabis.
who literally also Gretchen, the BTU, I just looked at it. British thermal unit, we're more commonly using kilowatt hours is the thing that we hear more often in the States, the conversation of like energy efficiency. British thermal unit, it's the like how much energy it takes to change a pound of water, or I mean a pound of water 1 degree. That's like the unit of measurement. But like kilowatt hours is a way that we kind of measure how much power is available, and that's British, anyways. Okay. But as somebody with that does pesticide training, like I will say the thing that I felt the same way, Ed, until I started having the conversation of combustion. Okay. We're lighting this on fire, and like the conversation of the products that we are lighting on fire and inhaling is very different than something you're like boiling in water. Like, I know it's not good, and like we shouldn't be giving any of it. Like, this should be being paid attention to everywhere, but combustion of a gang of these chemicals is a really big fucking deal.
Yeah. The energy thing though, like the electricity increase and putting strain on the electrical grid, like I can tell you that's a thing. Like I remember 2009, 2010 back in Colorado when cannabis was popping off and every single empty vacant warehouse space had gotten snatched up for a cannabis grow and was just pushing tons and tons of lights. Excel Energy, which was the provider in Denver metropolitan area, did a study. And I remember that they saw an over 27% increase of energy demand above and beyond that of the population growth experienced during the period the study was ran. And this was like early 2010, late 2009 that the study was ran. So just based off of these warehouses coming online, they said they experienced a 27% increase.
Damn. Oklahoma has been like pinned out in every fucking city on how much power because of all the grows they're getting put in. Yeah. But once we actually start creating the grid and the infrastructure necessary for the fucking electric cars we're all supposed to be driving in a decade or so.
It's all bullshit. It's all made up propaganda. It's all propaganda bullshit.
I wonder how they are going to measure how much energy illegal grows are using. I mean, you would have to find
They can't. You'd have to know where they all are.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not just like you can fly a drone over and identify where they are when they're hidden indoors.
Yes, you can. It's called a thermal camera.
Heat map.
Yeah.
Heat map.
Yeah. Not if the lights are off when the drone flies over.
And then there could be a random shutdown of all of the illegal grows all over the state, right?
The state of California has smart meters everywhere. Smart meters are required. And so the smart meters do math of grid to units of smart meter. And that's how they're able to figure out who's stealing power in like a really quick amount of time now. And so
they loosen up restrictions and let more of them use solar and utilize what God gave us for electricity and for energy. If they loosen up that shit for the industry, then maybe we won't be stealing from it.
We have Dr. Felicia. In Colorado, they actually banned greenhouses at the beginning of legalization in Colorado. You couldn't grow in a greenhouse in Colorado.
Okay,
we have Dr. Felicia up.
I just wanted to add a comment to the gentleman who was speaking about we should get pesticides out of the rest of big ag, and I agree with you on that, sir. But the difference between regular crops and cannabis and hemp is that cannabis and hemp are bioaccumulators. They suck in toxins from their environment much more than any other plant. So even if you didn't even fire it up, it's still more poisonous if you're growing it with a bunch of chemicals. So that's the issue of pesticides in cannabis and hemp.
Well, good point. Thank you, Dr. Felicia. But back on the power issue, I just have to express this one factoid that I happen to know about that most people have zero clue of.
Hit them with
LADWP. If they suspect that you are an illegal grow, you go on list A. Okay? As long as you pay your bill on time, you never leave off of list A. But once you're late on one payment, then you go to list B, and list B goes directly to the cops. So if you are a trapper out there growing an illegal grow, make sure your power bill is always paid on time, or LADWP is going to snitch your bitch ass out.
Yeah.
Join the A-team.
Don't steal your power. If you're gonna do something illegal, don't do another thing illegal. Yeah.
I think all this means is we should be pushing for more outdoor grows, less indoor.
No one wants to smoke outdoor weed. No, it's fucking bullshit. No, it's fucking boof. Throw that shit in the fireplace. No one wants that shit.
Of white Gucci. I love it. That was amazing.
Gucci Blanco.
See, you know what's up, Nicole. You smoke some of my weed. You know what it does.
Gucci Blanco.
We need international imports from countries like Colombia who can grow this shit much
Hold on.
cheaper.
None of those countries are ever going to meet the qualifications able to be imported into the U.S., Gretchen, and you know it.
Please, I've been to GMP certified grows in Colombia. None in this country.
There's no nostalgia for Colombia gold anymore.
Go. Next story. Come on.
You stink.
Jason.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I apologize. Give me.
That's what's happening.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't see the.
Jason with an apology today.
Who do
He
I
got all
have next? I'm
excited by
sorry
the
because I didn't
prospects
see.
of
I didn't
outdoor
see
weed.
the run
Nicole
show.
Bufong. Let's see.
Okay, Nicole Bufong. I got you right here. She's the cannabis patient, plant medicine advocate, and also the founder of Purple Plant Magic. She's a national brand ambassador for Black Buddha Cannabis and the Encyclopedia on Power 88 in Las Vegas every Wednesday. It is none other than the Nicole Bufong.
You're muted.
You are muted, Nicole Bufong.
Dang, girl.
I'm sorry. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jason, for that lovely introduction. My story today is out of South Africa. I talked about this a few months ago as this case was THC to take private grow club case to the Supreme Court. THC is the Hayes Club. That's the name of this private grow club. So it was by Brett Hilton Barber, published on Sunday. Lawyers representing the Hayes Club, THC, are preparing to file for leave for appeal against the Western Cape High Court ruling, dismissing the legality of the private grow club model. They have to file their application by September 19th, with the hope that the Supreme Court will hear the matter before the end of next year. Paul Michael Nichole of Cullinan and Associates told a panel discussion on the implications of the judgment that Section 1A of the Constitution specifically said the state should be advancing human rights, not blocking them. The state has to have a bloody good justification to limit on individuals' constitutional rights, such as society is going to collapse. Instead, he said the High Court's ruling was based on the apartheid-era drugs and drug trafficking of 1992, which in itself had been found to be unconstitutional. Andrew McPherson of Brink Ward Attorneys, who represents THC Director Neil Lydell, said the court ruling went against the law of general application, and this could be challenged constitutionally. Essentially, it rules out people who can't grow their own cannabis and would rather go through a grow club model that offers a safe alternative. If you recall, I reported this story earlier in the year. Lydell was arrested in October 2020 with 344 cannabis plants and 2.5 kilograms of dried cannabis, valued at $1 million. In his founding affidavit after arrest, Lydell said that the impunged provisions of the Drugs Act as it applies to the grow club model is unconstitutional. The interpretation of the ruling essentially is that the end user must be the cultivator of the cannabis, and that creates some patent absurdities. For example, if you are paraplegic or in any way incapacitated and cannot grow your own, therefore, in this interpretation, you are barred from your right to use cannabis at home. If you cannot grow it, you cannot use it, McPherson said. You are going to be in a position where you have a plant or two at home and a gardener splashing water on everything. And if he happens to splash water on your plant, then in accordance with the definition of cultivation, which is also quite broad and encapsulates any process in the growing of the plant, to take it to its illogical conclusion, then that gardener is guilty of dealing in cannabis and subject to all the penalties associated with that. It's unthinkable. McPherson also said that there was an obligation on the courts to do a justification or limitation analysis when dealing with laws that had a constitutional implication. When you look at the Constitution, you have to weigh up the limitation of a constitutional right, and then the onus shifts to the state as to why that limitation should be justified. And that includes an evaluation as to whether there's a less restrictive means of achieving the same outcome. And that is absolutely possible by allowing a collectivized or same outcome, a collectivized or social growing method, whether it be community garden or in an underprivileged area, or be that a grow club for people who can't afford, and anything in between. So I would love to hear what my colleagues think about this story. I'm glad that they're still fighting it. They're taking it to the Supreme Court, the highest court in South Africa, because they're right. It doesn't make sense. There should be co-ops allowed. Home grow, of course, we know we support that as an advocate, but there should definitely be co-ops allowed for patients that don't know how or don't have the means to grow at home. And this is Nicole reporting for High at 9 News.
So when I was in South Africa, I kept being like, I want to do that, but like, oh, the sign says I can't. And they were like, everyone's like, just go do it. And as long as you have, what was the number? I think it was 200 Rand, which is essentially like $12 or something, or like $14. And if somebody comes up, just hand them that and they'll say, okay. And I'm like, that's the reason why they don't legalize anything, like right there. Because if somebody walks up to me, I was literally instructed by my friends that are South African, like the people that live there that are like generations deep, give them money. And any police officer walks up to you, just hand them $20. And I'm like,
I could see Jason doing that. Like Jason was walking around, just chain smoking joints, handing out 20s.
I've done that. You know what I'm saying? I've done that.
Like,
I'm with that. I'm about that life.
Just don't hide. Other countries don't hide what's done in the shadows here in America.
That's why they say freedom isn't free.
It's right in front. It's right in front. Like they're literally straight up just hand it to them and they'll leave you alone. They'll walk away. And like I wanted to get closer to the penguins, and so I climbed over a fence and the guy walked up to me and I gave him 200 rand and he was just like, all right. And like I was like in the penguin tank, like like on the beach.
That's straight up white people shit right there. That's like the whitest shit ever. Like I bribed motherfuckers to go get closer to the penguin. Like what the fuck?
I needed to be closer to them.
That's how you get got. That's how a penguin ends up. Y'all want to get mad when penguins end up poking the shit out your eyes.
I know. I knew the risk I was taking, bro. I knew it.
Well, I mean, they can't really move their arms up, so it's not like they can slap you.
They're like little penguins in South Africa too.
Well,
so
that's how Harambe got shot.
I think that what the model that South Africa has right now, because it's not technically legal, right?
No, you're just allowed to have it. You're allowed to have it in your house. You can't leave with it
in your house only. So there's no medical program set up in South Africa. Or is
where do you get your weed from then?
I have a
you have to grow it yourself. That's the only option. That's what I'm saying.
I have a friend that has a like lounge in a place called Bloemfontein. The place is called the Humble Smoker, and it's like a lounge, and they do everything there, but you have to bring your own weed. So like they have the rosin press, they've got all the bongs, they've got like everything, and like people just need a place to be safe to do it, and it's like private, so people are literally paying so that they could be in a place and like smoke and it not be like at their house, because then their neighbors and the whole thing, and it's people live like very close to one another.
Nicole, did you say Boof and Tane?
Bloemfontein.
Bloemfontein. Bloemfontein.
That's a pimp name. That's a pimp name. Bloemfontein.
I think we've made it to the end of this story. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Absolutely.
I love following South Africa stories, and I love seeing what's happening, and I hope to see it actually develop into like a real market for them to be able to buy the weed that they're growing, right?
Yeah. Get on that daga.
Yeah, get the daga.
All right, so coming up next, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our next correspondent and the newest addition to the High at 9 team. He's the resident tech guy and voice behind the High at 9 intro. Ed is a regulated cannabis industry vet with 13 years experience, currently as a product manager at Blaze, overseeing retail software products. And coming to the stage next is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ed Schwartz. What you got for us, my brother? Welcome.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you for the intro. I'm honored for that one, man. That was beautiful. Well, thank you again. Yeah, my name's Ed Schwartz. Happy to be here and happy to be joining the High at 9 news team. But my article today actually comes from the Cannabis Industry Journal, that wonderful trade magazine. And it's about the coming cannabis data squeeze and why money companies are flying blind. It's written by a great guy, actually. His name is Michael Blanche. He started this really cool company called Surfside that does some amazing stuff with e-commerce. But he starts off the article really talking about just setting the stage of where we stand right now as an industry. And this is something I'm constantly talking about with my friends and people I work with. But he says, data is a very hard concept to picture. It's even harder to visualize what your data is saying about your business, because then you have to take that data and extract from it. Many insights are processed on different systems, and they never see the light of day, and they never see each other. In the digital advertising industry, we call this a data silo. In the cannabis industry, we've come to know this really just as the cost of doing business, unfortunately, and that's a shame to see. He goes on to say that without traditional tech tools or a source of truth on market sentiment and trends, there's no common picture that can show us the day-to-day behavior of today's cannabis consumer. Companies are often guessing what consumers want based on only the data they have available, and that is a pretty small-sized data set when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. For instance, here in California, there's 300, 400, 500 retail licenses, and when you see your one shop, you're only seeing that tiny little sliver of the $6 billion of cannabis commercial activity happening in the state at the time. So Michael goes on to say, cannabis companies that started digital first with that really strong e-commerce strategy, strong marketing, all those fun things, they have a head start on the legacy businesses. Phone numbers, emails, customer preferences are all first-party data that can be used by retailers to help them find and advertise to new customers. So he goes on to talk about a few different ways that you'll be able to do that. And one of the ways that you can do that is building your customer database with a rewards program. A 2022 YouGov survey found that when cannabis consumers are asked how they make purchasing decisions, 36% said it was based off of safety and quality. 34% said it was the lowest price. 32% said it was based on the proximity to their home. And 31% said it was because they had their preferred products. And so we know the value of these rewards programs, but we usually depend on the steep discounts to get that common customer return, right? And so rewards programs also give us that opportunity to offer promotions for new product releases, exclusive access, and things like that your customers already care about. The most valuable thing about our rewards program really isn't the sales, though, and the sales that it brings. It's the data. Data is one of the most crazy valuable things on the market right now. You would be astounded at how much data is worth. So just make sure you keep that data. The next thing that he goes on to recommend is bud tenders that care, and brings up another study that found that 22% of customers always decide what to buy based on the bud tender advice, and 69% said they seriously consider their opinions. So that leaves really only 9% of people who don't follow bud tender recommendations. So if you don't have bud tenders upselling, understanding the product, and really catering to that customer's needs, you're losing. You're falling behind. Another great way is to find a secure way to manage your customer data. We're very lucky in the cannabis industry that we haven't been hit with huge data leaks just yet, but you see that happening in the corporate world all over the place with data leaks. It's just a matter of time, really. It happens, unfortunately, all over the place. So it's really important to make sure that you're working with companies that have the ability to securely store that data, and if you're bringing it in-house and working and manipulating it yourself, have good data integrity and data retention policies. Make sure you have secure access. I know, having worked with Nichole in the past, if you don't need access to a document, you don't get access to a document. That's how it should always stay. I don't mean to sound like a CIA agent or anything, but that's the best way to keep your data safe. He goes on to finish, really, one of the last things that you can do is co-market with the community. And the community, like, as we all understand and know here in the cannabis industry, community is what brought us here to the point we're at today. And so, of course, marketing and continuing to work with that community to market to your consumers is, of course, going to be one of the best strategies. So the most exciting, he surmises everything and says the most exciting part about the future of cannabis industry all comes down to the data. And I can tell you firsthand, I'm seeing that myself. The community grew together, and now businesses can innovate together, building a better customer experience by understanding every stage in the customer journey. In a relationship-first industry, cannabis digital advertising has to be as personalized as a bud tender's recommendations. And that's all for that story. Again, my name's Ed Schwartz, and I'm here reporting for the High at 9 News Hour.
Ed, thank you so much for covering this story. This is something that there's the gospel, the same fucking gospel we've been preaching since 2016, 2017, when I was over at Baker Technologies, and we were trying to teach retailers how to weaponize their own data, because all these other companies are scraping the shit from them and they have no idea, and they're not using loyalty programs. It's the absolute easiest way to better connect with your customer base and find out how to maximize growth, period. Like, the numbers are out there, and the small retailers are just going to get rolled the fuck over for continuing to ignore this shit. This is the most powerful bit of information that you can give out to the smaller retailers right now, in the way that you can remain a player in the game with all of these MSOs coming in, because you have both qualitative and quantitative data. So without the quantitative data, you can't follow the fucking numbers, and you have to fucking do that if you want to survive the next round of fucking of bullshit regulations coming through. Regulations going to come through, and it's going to make it easier for the big guys to do what they want to do because they have the data that they've already utilized and weaponized to take them to the next level. Sorry.
I need to make a comment because one thing that's really important to know is if you don't properly train your people, which 97% of these jobs are not properly trained, the data goes in dirty. And so I would say almost all the data that's in the ether right now, minus probably the last like 6 to 8 months where people have finally started to get their fucking heads around this, all the real clean data is MSOs because they fucking came in and they were...
I hate to say it. I work with a lot of MSOs, and you're a little optimistic to their abilities to have good data hygiene in some.
I don't think they all do. There's only a couple that do, but I'm saying there's enough of them where the only clean data where you can see like across a country. You know what I mean? Like looking at seeing like this state versus this state versus this state. There's only a few MSOs that have a clean perspective of what that even looks like on locational, because all the data going into these big aggregate data things are based off of the data in by all of us in the industry, which has gone in dirty as fuck because we poorly train people.
They spend so much money and time cleaning that data up.
We have Andy Sherwood from Clubhouse. And Andy, do you have a brief comment on this?
Andy. Yeah, thank you. Just a brief comment. Regarding the stats with the bud tenders and the amount of influence they have over the consumer base. I've made this point up here before, and it gets mixed reviews and feelings, but there's so much confusion and there's no consistency in this industry with stop. Sorry about that. My dog. No consistency with this industry in how do we want to acknowledge, treat, see the position of bud tender? Because I know I've been up here before on this soapbox and, have heard everything from, well, it's just an entry level position. So, minimum wage is fine. And to, we have the other dispensaries that are actually calling them, which, I feel that they should, and also be properly trained to go along with that, but they are renaming it bud tender to consultant or specialist. Andy,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are at the end of our show, but I definitely do think that it depends on the store's efforts, right? Yeah. What does that store want to be? So I don't think that that's an answer that we can say for the industry. Are you a medical focused store? Or are you trying to look like the Trap, but you're not the Trap? That's the difference. You know what I mean? And everybody's going to be a different thing. Somebody might be a bag flipper. That might be the name of the fucking spot that's literally called the Trap that has a license and is fully compliant.
Are you trying to be Ross, Dress for Less, or are you trying to be Macy's?
I just wanted to add to this that I had 3 separate conversations with people outside of cannabis industry in Oklahoma this weekend. And I asked them why they chose the dispensary that they were going to. And they said, one girl said, oh, because they remember me. They always remember my pronouns. They remember what products I've bought. That's why I go there. And the same conversation, same response, 3 separate people. I go there because they know who I am. They know what I like. And they treat me with respect. And that's why they keep going back to that same place.
Yeah.
Neighborhood stores.
Hey, Jason, what are your pronouns?
I don't believe in pronouns.
We
That's just
are
ridiculous.
on to the end of the story. So catch us Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Thank you to our sponsors, audience, and supporters. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us and letting us live rent-free in your head. True Classic and LAXCC for helping us eat. Thank you to the correspondents for being abso-fucking-lutely amazing. Thank you, Ed, for joining the team. Thank you, Weed, for helping us be a little bit funnier and helping us tolerate some bullshit. Thank you to 3 is 4 for being awesome, bullshit? Trippy house cats and helping us sound like we know what the fuck we're doing. Thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. Run the outro music, y'all.
Cupcake is a they, them.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.